Hello! Today we are talking about the principle of cyclic opportunity. So this is one of my favorite permaculture principles because it's so directly connected to obtaining a yield. And I think that when we feel like we're getting something, if we're getting a reward for our work, just like a puppy, we are more likely to respond favorably to the suggestion of that task in the future. So the principle of cyclic opportunity is one of the main ways that we can really tap the flow of resources that might be going to waste. Tapping the flow of available resources and becoming a part of an interactive cycle of multiple levels of organisms increases the meaning and value of our lives in an ecological sense. So Bill Mollison has a famous quote, "Every cyclic event increases the opportunity for yield. To increase cycling is to increase yield." Cycles in nature are diversion routes away from entropic ends. Life itself cycles nutrients, giving opportunities for yield and thus opportunities for species to occupy time niches. Functional, healthy permaculture design is all about designating, creating, identifying, recognizing opportunistic niches in time and space in which interconnected microorganisms can coexist, including us, right? In the big whole system design. Let's start with an example from my own garden with tapping into the potential for cyclic opportunity in the local water flow. So I live in a basin. I live in the bottom of a river valley at the top of a mountain. And the water flows from the mountains to the river, and the neighborhood that I'm in is in between that. And in ancient times, Romans and Moors and ancient farmers tapped into the flow and created what is called an acequia system. And my garden is irrigated that way. So let's have a look at an example here.
This is where the water comes in to our site. And from there, we zigzag it back around through this area. And so we're diverting the cycle. If the water came in and just went its natural way without us having interrupted the flow, then the water would come in right here, and then it would shoot straight down all the way past the bottom of the garden and straight to the neighbor's house. But instead, we have diverted the flow many, many times so that it cycles around in spirals throughout our entire garden and enables us to have a very lush and abundant food forest.
Okay, so now let's connect this back to what you already know. So remember GO-BRDEAM: goals, observation, boundaries, resources, analysis, design, implementation, maintenance, evaluation, the 9 steps of our design process. And then we talked about permaculture principles, and we distilled it down into 9 permaculture principles that connect to the 9 steps of the design process. And those permaculture principles, the way I put them together, because that's what makes sense for me, are diversity, pattern, specificity, recycling, creativity, placement, inclusion, autonomy, feedback. So connecting these, it becomes a memory tool and a learning tool and a design tool. So we walk through the steps of the good design process. We consider principles, all of the principles at every stage, but hone in on specific principles as we move through the process. And then we inevitably have to think about the sectors, right? And that's basically what cycles are. Cycles are sectors. And as cycles move through the steps in our design process, as the cycles interconnect with the inevitable and employable principles on our design project, then we increase opportunities for yield, we increase our chances to learn about what's going on and to learn from our mistakes and to improve our designs over time and space and function. So these cycles, the way I connected them I connected cosmos with goals. And so I don't mean cosmos in the metaphysical sense. I mean the actual universe. And I think that our goal is diversity, and our goal is to connect, to be in harmony with the cosmos in a very physical sense. So observations I connected with chaos. So in order to connect, we have to acknowledge that chaos exists and that chaos is actually a resource. And it's out there. And if we can tap the flow, if we can create eddies in the chaos, that's where some of our most creative work can occur. So moving around, boundaries. Water will always be the ultimate boundary, and especially in the very near future, we need to consider that water is a boundary that we're going to have to design around constantly. Resources, tapping the waste flow. Analysis, we're analyzing everything against the wilderness. The point is to reach that state of glory and thriving and self-sustenance. Design around the energy that's available to you, personally and in your family and all of that. So design for placement, design for energy. And then in implementation, that's when you tap into the society of it. That's when there's these social cycles. So remember, this is the cycles level of the wheel. And I call this the spiral design wheel. And the reason I call it a spiral is because we have to remember that nothing ever comes back to the same place twice. It's always going round and around and kind of bumping together and shifting every time. So in implementation is when we really find out who's going to really get involved in the project. And then the maintenance phase, that's when we're employing the principle of autonomy. And I like to think about the seed cycle. It's really, really important. And the potential for humanity to survive as a species is absolutely interconnected with the cycle of the seeds and the plants. And then the evaluation phase, it's important for us to receive feedback and to look at the cycle with ourselves and to say, hey, is this working? So that's it for our quick introduction to cyclic opportunity in a permaculture system. And I hope you enjoyed it and look forward to hearing what you think. Take care and find us on freepermaculture.com and permaculturewomen.com. Have a great day.